Next year marks the 100-year release of this film.
Wow.
I had started doing this, putting the live music of the film with Buster Keaton. I had done a piece called Neighbors, and I had done another one where he's constructing a house, and boy, I wish I could remember that one. That was kind of cool too. But if we could throw the lights for a second, Patrick. I thought I'd talk to you guys a little bit about some cool stuff, and I'm going to play a couple pieces for you too. So it's a little handout, but you could get an idea of what it was like to score a film and play the piano back then. If you wouldn't mind passing some of these around, that would be fantastic. This was an actual score from the movie Florence Vador, The Popular Sin, and it just shows you how each different line would signify something different that was going along in film. Which is pretty cool. Some piano players and Wurlitzer organ players that would do this live accompaniment would do a lot of improv, where somebody's running around. So they just see it. Yeah, we don't want that up there. Scare the audience right out of here. So they would do a lot of improv. They're also the ones that had the score set up for them. This is a case in point of where there's a score written out. And you can see each individual action that took place had a certain score or certain music notes that would signify what was going to happen in the next scene. Directors back then in silent film were extremely hands-on. For instance, let's say you were smoking a cigarette. The director would tell you, okay, take a puff. Okay, put cigarette down. Okay, take one step to the right, take one step to the left. Everything was micromanaged. I don't know how actors would deal with it today. If you've ever watched the credits at the end of a film and you get to see some of the uncut scenes, you see that when the director says action, it's not like that. It's when that actor is ready to go, is taking a deep breath, because they can cut that time out. They just need that actor to get it right the one time. But here, everything was so hands-on. So they say that the acting that went along in these silent films will never be duplicated. One, because of that. And two, there was no dialogue. They had to convince you what was going on. So one of the other ways they would do that, aside obviously the music, but I was reading, was the color. They would actually tint, and different colors would signify different things, would show different emotions. Nothing too surprising, but I thought it was really cool. And I had the page marked. Of course, it's not marked. But just to give you a little bit of background on the color aspect of it. With the lack of natural color processing available, films of the silent era were frequently dipped in dye stuffs and dyed various shades of hues to signal a mood or represent a time of day. Hand tinting dates back to 1895 in the United States with Edison's release of selected hand-tinted prints of the butterfly dance. We'll get back to Edison, by the way. Additionally, experiments in color film started as early as 1909, although it took a much longer time for color to be adopted by the industry and an effective process to be developed. Blue represented night scenes, yellow or amber meant day, red represented fire, and green represented a mysterious atmosphere. Similar toning of films, such as the common silent film generalization of sepia toning, with special solutions replaced the silver particles in the film stock with salter dyes of various colors. A combination of tinting and toning could be used as an effect that could be striking. So it's a little piece of something that I realized didn't take place until I had done some more research. Different countries did different things. Silent film in Japan went on a lot further than it did in here before we got to the talkies, because they actually would have a narrator, or what was called a banshee, behind the screen narrating. So that kept those movies going on for a little bit longer. Brazil did more operatic people that were performing on stage next to the film and singing the parts, which was really cool. They say 75% of the silent films have been lost. They don't have the exact number on record. one of the things too that was a problem was some of these got thrown out because they weren't played at the right speed. Your projector, you could have something that was kind of intact, but if you didn't play it back at the right speed, the movie was no good, and they ended up getting thrown out. Something that I found that was really interesting was that back in 1978, they had come across a landfill, which was like the end point of where they finished up silent movies. This was like a big kind of like factory place. Many early motion pictures are lost because the nitrate film used in the era was extremely unstable and flammable. Additionally, many films were deliberately destroyed because they had little value in the era before home video. It has often been claimed that around 75% of silent films have been lost, though these estimates may be inaccurate due to a lack of numerical data. This is what I thought was really cool. Major silent films presumed lost include Saved from the Titanic, a 1912 film which featured the survivors of the disaster.
Wow.
The Life of General Villa, starring Pancho Villa himself, and a couple other neat ones. But in 1978, in Dawson City, Yukon, a bulldozer uncovered buried reels of nitrate film during excavation of a landfill. Dawson City was once the end of the distribution line for many films. The retired titles were stored at the local library until 1929, when the flammable nitrate was used as a landfill in a condemned swimming pool. Wow. Stored for 50 years under permafrost of the Yukon, the films turned out to be extremely well preserved. Included were films by Pearl White, Harold Lloyd, Douglas Fairbanks, and Lon Chaney. These films are now housed at the Library of Congress. The degradation of old film stock can be slowed through proper archiving, and films can be transferred to digital media for preservation. Silent film preservation has been a high priority among film historians. So I had gotten tapped and somebody said, hey, listen, I like the concept that you're doing. We're having a 100-year anniversary. Could you find something from 1916? And there's not a lot of great visual quality stuff from 1916 other than Charlie Chaplin. The Chaplin stuff seemed a little dark for me, but it is up on YouTube. If this is something you really think is pretty cool, you go on there and you can find a couple of those. The way a lot of his movies were done were with a Wurlitzer, and they had different unique kind of sounds, like you could hit a button and it'd go boing and stuff like that. For me, I'm going with stuff that would sound a little more interesting on the piano. The public domain pieces that you probably heard were Sweet Rosie O'Grady, the band played on, Bill Grogan's Goat, which was an old college drinking song. Mary probably knows that, right, Mary? Just kidding. Teasing, of course. So they had some really cool little old classical pieces that they would do. The songs that you might have found interesting or not interesting were this one. That was a waltz. That was my first attempt at writing a waltz. This guy up here was another waltz that I experimented with. This piece is off my new album. Trying to go for dark, but at the same time where it would open up into some kind of fun stuff. And I think the last one was a piece I wrote called Hopeless Romantic. It's on YouTube, but I liked how it ended, was like pretty intense. This is the one that started this way. So you had some of the original ones in there. I mentioned to you that we would go back a little bit to Thomas Edison. Film started around here because of the location, the lighting. The lighting was extremely important when you were doing film. So the Long Island area was great for the lighting or whatever, and things got started here. This was Hollywood East. And what had happened was Thomas Edison was trying to control the market. He had come up with one of the inventions for the camera. He had come up with a couple other things, and he formed a group called the Trust because they pooled all their patents together and said, hey, you want to do a movie, you got to come through us. And people were like, whoa, because they were dropping the hammer, charging, probably exorbitant amount of prices. That drove everybody out of here. And then they went and they found California, they went and found Hollywood. It's a great location because you had the temperature was really good all year around. So that's how that was. But there were what you might find interesting is if you go and you pick up some silent films, you'll find out a lot about the geography of Long Island and its history. I know for a fact one of the silent films was done out in Bridgehampton, and you can see the Dutch windmill that was there out there. Interesting fact that Great Gatsby had been done for silent film 3 times, but only once do they show parts and scenes from Long Island. From what I understand, they had filmed it somewhere else. I thought I'd play you that song that I mentioned that came from Samson and Delilah, and then I talk to you a little bit more about a couple other fun facts, and then maybe play a little more for you. So this was the aria, My Heart at Thy Sweet Voice, and this was the aria from Samson and Delilah. 1925 in Austria is where it debuted in silent film. So an article that I had stumbled across was from a magazine called The 47, and they had done a story from, I want to say 35 years ago. So this would be 1912. 35 years ago, the price for scripts was $25. Now remember, this is the article was written in 47, talking about 35 years ago. 35 years ago, the price for scripts was $25. A good salary for an executive was $50 a week. An expensive picture was one that cost $500. The salaries of actors ranged from $75 to $125 a week. Directors were paid $150, cameramen got $80. There were no producers. Each day's shooting commenced with a hunt to find a spectacular place at which to kill the villain. This was usually a high cliff. 50 feet of the heroine in the hero's arms were shot and a 20-foot walk into the sunset. The whole company sat down and figured out the first part of the production. The universal motto was, do and die first, reason why later. So you started at the end of the film, which is kind of interesting because there's pieces, I'll start writing in my head and I'll start writing music, and I start from the back and end up finding my way to the beginning. So I could see that a little bit, but I don't get out much. So. Extra players got $1.50 a day. The good ones were put under contract at $10 a week. If they performed stunts such as jumping over a cliff or wrestling a berserk steer or swimming a river in a flood, they got $1 extra. So, yeah, I have to see if that's on the job applications these days. There were no doubles. If the script called for the hero to fall from a precipice, he fell personally, usually either into the sea or a rented haystack. In one saga, the leading man was strung up by the neck to be rescued in the nick of time by a posse. The horse on which he was sitting bolted, and the hero was literally hung for a few moments. He got a sore neck and asked for a raise. Production averaged 3 pictures a week, each one reel long. Back then, when this first came out, and this is also kind of funny, as I picked a 15-minute reel, they were called one-reelers. They thought back then that people would not sit for more than 15 minutes at a movie, which is really kind of cool when you think about it. And then as things grew, they would do these picture shows one after another. The first movies were shown in a vaudeville house or whatnot. And I just can't imagine the piano player's emotions. I mean, I just do 15 minutes and I'm like, well, I'm a little gassed, but they would go hours and hours. And then during the break, a cue card would come out like you saw in the movie, and it would say, now the piano will play a couple of your favorites or something. And it's like, whoa, so they never stop, which is insane when you think about it. People love their movies because if you had a camera, you could go and you can make a movie anywhere, and you could show it anywhere you want. So it was really, really cool. Thousands of requests were made for the photographs of stars. The stars obliged. They charged their fans 25 cents a piece for a picture. Each cost the star 10 cents. The 15-cent profit per still picture usually totaled more per week than salary. Only one director, this is going to blow your mind away, and I don't know, I've never heard of this gentleman's name. Only one director, Alan Dwan, has worked continuously in motion pictures from 1909 to 1947. His salary has ascended from $50 a week to a flat $1 million a year. He has made more than 1,250 pictures of all lengths, colors, and kinds. His productions have earned more than $500 million at the box office. That's 1947. The Pathé was the only good motion picture camera. It was hand cranked to the spoken rhythm of 101, 101, 101, and a patent was claimed on it by the early Biograph and Videograph companies. It was difficult to get one of these cameras. Hijacking was often resorted to. Expert riflemen were sometimes planted in the hills about a location, and more than once an illegal camera was shot full of holes. The director talked constantly during the shooting. Put out the match, cross to the window, you see someone coming, someone you love, you look at the door expectantly, all right, come in. So everything was just spoken out for you, which was really pretty wild. I found some pretty cool fun facts. Also, what I'm going to do is if you'd like to stay in touch, I have an email list. So if you guys want to pass that around, if I don't have your email address and you'd like to share it, be my guest, just print so I can read it. A couple fun silent film facts before I play a couple more pieces for you. First time people paid to see a movie was at Coaster and Bell's Music Hall in New York City. It was April 20th, 1896, Shakespeare's birthday. First Pittsburgh Nickelodeon showing The Great Train Robbery, June 19th, 1905. First film company arrives in Los Angeles, 1907. Chicago is the first city to censor movies, November 4th, 1907. Number of theaters in 1910, approximately 13,000. Average length of a movie in 1910, 3 reels, approximately 30 minutes. Average cost of a ticket in 1910, 7 cents. Mary Pickford's salary in 1910, $175 per week. Average feature film budget in 1913, $13,000. First serial, The Adventures of Kathleen, 1913. Charlie Chaplin's debut as the Tramp, Kid Audio Races at Venice, 1914. First movie, Screen Goddess, Theta Bara, 1915. Buster Keaton's first film, The Butcher Boy, 1916. Number of studio employees in Hollywood in 1920, 20,000. In 1926, 300,000. First motion theater in the United States, Vidoscope Hall, New Orleans, LA, July 26, 1896. Location is now a Burger King. So it's just fascinating how things progress. And things would progress in the music world as well. You started with a piano, you went to a Wurlitzer, and then Edison was one of the first to get an orchestra to play behind these silent films. And I guess the tough part was for these pit players and these orchestras, that when they got sound and you had voices and whatnot, that all these guys were out of job. Which, when you think about it, it's kind of crazy. So the big movement that's going on, and I guess you could say I'm part of it, not that I'm like joining in with everybody, like, but the big movement is now putting contemporary music to film. All the stuff that you heard here is classical on my behalf, but it's definitely contemporary. They've even gone as far as taking some rock music. I know one of the silent films had Freddie Mercury's music in the background of it. But if you can depict the emotion, you can kind of get away with it. I try to keep it a little bit on the classical side. That's just what I do anyway. And to kind of keep it on that plane, that level of classical playing field. Just a little bit more about me, then I'll play you a few songs, and then I'll let you out of here. So I have a silent film up. Actually, one of the moms of this young, the mom of this young lady is here, and she had, this young lady had gone to Briarcliff and gone for film school or whatnot, and she had asked if I could help her out with some music. So my big thing now is to start up with some upstart people that are looking to do careers in film, hoping that they might remember me if I help them out a little bit in the beginning. When they start doing something a little more important, they say, hey, could I get another song from you? So her mom is here, it's really cool, and if you'd like to talk to her, she's really a wealth of information on this kind of stuff too. But she did a project for her final, and it was called 70, and it's about a 70-year-old man who celebrates his birthday. Him and his wife go to the beach, and he can't find his shoes. And it's an 8-minute little silent film that she did for her final, and it's on my YouTube channel, which is JK Hodge 1. Just type that in and you can watch that. And all the music to it is original with one public domain piece of Chopin waltz. So I've been at this since I was 32. One of my first concerts was here. I'm now 40. So we've been coming along greatly. One, I owe everything to my faith in Christ, and also my friends and family, and we've just progressed from there. So I'm very fortunate that I've been able to release 3 albums. The last one in February called All Your Heart's Desires, which is a collaboration with a couple instruments, and then my original music, where I've been studying under a gentleman who's now doing his doctorate over at Yale for music, just to give me some little more fuller songwriting. So the third album I'm extremely proud of. The second album that I did, I'm pretty happy about that too, but it's more of a winter holiday album. Leans more towards the Christmas side. It's called, what is it called? Winter's Gift, where I actually do a 13-minute Christmas medley on one track. So if you were listening to it and it wasn't Christmas time, you can skip right over the track and you skip all the Christmas music. But I did the Nutcracker, and I did some winter type feel pieces in it. So I actually have them for sale today. If you're interested in that, you can come find me at the end. But I thought I'd play a couple songs from the album. Please, like I said, leave me your email address if you keep passing that along, and I would love to stay in touch. The next gig that I will be doing, off the top of my head, is it's great, especially for the kids. It's at the Bayport Flower House. It's the Saturday after Thanksgiving. I'll be rolling out the Christmas music then. I don't do it generally before then. And he's got all kinds of trees and Christmassy stuff, scavenger hunt for the kids, they make wreaths, and all the while you're walking around shopping, I mean, if you haven't been there, it's amazing. I'm playing the Nutcracker and stuff like that, trying to get everybody in the mood of the Christmas spirit. So that's the next public performance I have. Last Thursday, generally of every month, I'm at the Blue Point Bistro and Grill. If you're ever looking to get some food poisoning and listen to bad music, come on down. I'm sure I got some bad jokes too, right, Mary? Come on down there. But the owner over there is super. And the next time, I also host an international film night. This is a big thing. I'm over at the West Side Library. If you're into the film part of this aspect, I show a foreign film once a month over at the West Side Library. And I know that's November 12th of next week. So I'm going to play a couple more originals that are off my most recent album. And then, please, if you'd like to come over and say hello, I'd love to meet you. Super friend. You guys want to dance?